Så, hej igen. Ursäkta för strulet, men nu är vi tillbaka. Och hoppas att ni har haft bra tid tillsammans och att ni har fikat någonting gott. Vi ska fortsätta direkt med den sista delen av Ariannas undervisning. Så luta er tillbaka och spetsa öronen så ska vi lyssna.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the third session. I can't believe it's gone this quickly already. I hope you've really enjoyed the first two and had some time to reflect, time to discuss and time to just really embed some of that knowledge. It's, my heart really is that as you leave today, that these things we've talked about, these things that you've discussed, really do make a difference, that they strengthen you as a leader. And so today, this afternoon session, we're going to be really looking more at the characteristics of healthy leadership. What does it look like, and what should we watch out for in ourselves and in our teams to make sure that we are as healthy as we can be as leaders? So I have 5 main characteristics that I want to look at in a little bit more depth this afternoon, and then I know you're going to have some time again to discuss, and I'll be doing some Q&As as well. So starting with the first one, the first characteristic I really want to sort of look into is that there is a sense of God leading, not just the leader leading. And by that I mean that there is a sense that there's a rooted and a grounded in the relationship with God from the leader, that those who are watching can really sense and see the personal connection and relationship that the leader has with God. Really, a leader like that leads by following God and taking people on that journey with them. They have a strong vertical connection to God, which then bleeds out into a strong horizontal connection with the people. But it really creates a strong sense in team when the team can trust that the leader is listening to, is spending time with, and has a strong personal connection to Jesus. When we look at King David in the Bible, it says of him that he inquired of the Lord. It will often say he inquired of the Lord. And even in times when you would think, well, why would you even bother asking God that? Surely that's a no-brainer. I'm thinking particularly of the example when David's gone away and all the men have been with him and they've been fighting a battle, and when they get back to their camp, the enemy has taken all of the children and all of their wives and all of their possessions and cattle hostage. They've kidnapped them, and the men, the army, David's men are furious. They're like, we need to go and get them. And David takes time out to inquire of the Lord. He asks God what to do, even at risk of his own safety, because the men are so angry that he isn't doing something immediately that they're threatening to kill David. So David, even despite the opinion of his army, of his team, even despite that he's facing terrible loss, decides he needs to take time out and pray and inquire instead of just doing what would seem the most obvious thing to do. And God says to him, yes, go and chase them and I will give you victory. I wonder whether if David hadn't taken the time to inquire of the Lord and just done what the people wanted, or just done what the army wanted, or just done what seemed common sense, whether the victory would not have been given. It was God who gave him the victory. And David knew that because he spent time asking God what to do. I know my team trusts me because they trust God in me. They trust that we are, and know that we are so far out as a team at Mercy. We are so far out of the comfortable, so far out of what is possible. We are so reliant on God's intervention and God's guidance and God's leading and God's miraculous performing of miracles for us and through us and with us, that they trust my relationship with God. They trust that I am hanging on to God, because without him we couldn't be doing what we're doing. So healthy leadership really demonstrates and models and brings people into, well, what is it God is saying to you? God is leading this, not just me. And I think as we get older as leaders, as we become more familiar with what we do and how we do things, a bit like David, where he could have just reacted, he could have just done what seemed obvious. We need to protect and guard ourselves, that we don't just fall into that rhythm of, well, we assume that we know what God would say, that we become so good at doing what we do that we don't create space for God to speak into it. You know, there was a study done into professional wildfire fighters in America, and it was done by psychologists at the University of Michigan, and this is what they found. They found that most casualties amongst firefighters occurred with those who'd only had 1 or 2 years experience, and surprisingly with those who'd had over 15 years experience. Obviously, it makes sense that those who are new to firefighting would suffer the most injury and the most death. But actually, they wondered why it was that those with the most experience were also suffering the most injury and death. And they realized it was because those were the people who think they've seen it all, that they think that fire has nothing left to teach them. And this is a crucial, important lesson for us when we're creating leadership teams and atmospheres, that we are never too old or too experienced to learn, and to keep learning and to keep growing and to keep inquiring of the Lord, instead of becoming so familiar and so used to doing that we just do, instead of actually taking the time to sit. You know, let's be people who create a Mary atmosphere, not a Martha atmosphere in our leadership teams. Not that we're just constantly doing the activities of what our leadership requires of us, but that we're actually taking time to sit at the feet of Jesus and allow the people to see us sitting at the feet of Jesus. Allow them to build a trust in our relationship with him. So here's what to look out for. Just little flags, little red flags, that if you find yourself engaging in these thoughts or these behaviors, then that's time to just go, oh, hang on a second, I just need to pay attention to that. So look out for a relationship with God that's just based on performance and work, and based on assuming you know what God wants you to do. Like only reading your Bible when you need to prepare a message, or only praying when there's a crisis or when there's something you really don't know what to do, rather than having it as part of your everyday life and relationship with him. Look out for covering up and making excuses for your own bad behavior. You know, when you find yourself acting out of you as a person, and then realizing that it's been a long time since you've actually been in the presence of God, and then excusing that I'm too busy, you know, I haven't had time to spend time with God in devotional time, you know, so watch out for excusing and finding other things to do instead of sitting at his feet. Watch out for a resistance to receiving from other people. So that you think you have got all the answers now, you've read every book in the Bible, and you stop listening to other preachers, you stop listening or reading other books. You know, be really committed to cultivating a deep, personal and growing relationship with Jesus. So that was the first. Second characteristic to that marks healthy leadership and healthy leadership teams is that there is a sense of round table. And what I mean by that is based on, the round table is a very familiar concept that kind of comes out of the King Arthur legends, which is very famous here in England. I hope you've heard of them in Sweden. But King Arthur is a legend, is you know, with the sword and everything. But one of the things that people often talk about with King Arthur was the round table leadership, which was very different because at the time kings would normally sit at the head of a long table, and they would make long announcements and pronouncements and would lead by others listening to them. Everyone listened, no one spoke, only the king would speak. And King Arthur reduced that sense of hierarchy and power by creating a round table and setting the scene and creating a culture of collaboration, of working together. And in doing that, he discovered a power that eventually united medieval England. And that power, experts have now called organizational intelligence. It means that basically the leader is secure enough to bring on and empower people around the table with a voice in areas and skills that are better than what the leader has. They are not intimidated by other people's strengths, by other people's talents and skills and expertise, and in fact invite those voices around the table without it threatening the sense of the leader's responsibility to be in charge. Leaders like that understand that there is a difference between being in charge and being in control. They are able to stay in charge, to take on the responsibility of final decision making, but are able to bring everyone else around the table in on the process of the decision making, which means they're not trying to constantly control everyone. There's a round table power that I believe is essential in this season. I think we have moved away in church and in ministry from what was an old leadership style of do as I say because I am the man or the woman of God. Do as I say because I have ultimate authority before God. That is an old way where people were often ruled in fear. People felt they didn't have a voice, felt that if they brought any sense of criticism or observation or reflection or feedback, it was deemed as being a personal attack on the leader. And I think there is a generation growing up now who do not want to do as they have been told. They want to shape and be a part of and form the way forward. And we as leaders need to create cultures where we are secure enough that we are actually know that we are being led by God, and therefore are able to allow others to feed into the process of decision making. And it creates a much healthier way of direction and decision making. It is a sign, a characteristic of a healthy leadership team where people feel they have a voice, where people are heard and listened to. It doesn't mean that it's ruled by committee. It doesn't mean that everyone gets to decide what's happening, but it does mean that everyone has a voice and everyone is heard. So here's what to look out for. If you come across a sense of a belief system in yourself or in others where it's, I am the leader, so I have all the answers. That sense of I am the one who should come up with the fix for the problem because I'm the leader. I'm the one who should set the pace because I'm the leader. I'm the one who should. So if you're coming up with that sense of false responsibility, which is what it is, where you don't invite others in on the process because you feel that's your responsibility, then you need to watch out for. That's a little bit of a flag. How about this one? I'm the leader, so what I think matters more than what they think. My opinion is more important than other people's opinion. Now, there is some sense that as the leader, you have the ultimate responsibility to make a decision, but how you get to that decision, whether you include other people in it or whether that decision is yours and yours alone, you've not talked to anybody about it, because your opinion matters more, you feel like you have all the answers anyway, so you don't really need to ask anyone else what they think, or if they do say what they think and it doesn't come and you don't agree with it, you automatically override it without giving it thought and due attention. So watch out for that. Watch out for the opposite, which is now I'm not going to make any decisions because I have given it over to the circle and we are now a committee, and even though I know in my heart of hearts that we need to be doing this and 2 or 3 people have said we need to do it like this, that you then just go, okay, well, we'll just do what everyone else thinks. So you need to find that balance, that just check that you're not then going, okay, now all the power is with them and we do what the minority want, or if anyone complains or has an objection, then it means we don't do it. So there is that balance of realizing it's not all your decision, but it's also not all their decision. So I know that's difficult, but whoever said leadership was easy? So it's just finding that balance. Okay, characteristic number 3 of healthy leadership teams and a healthy way to lead is, this is a tough one for me. There is no resentment or resistance to the need of structure or process or planning. Now, I'm a pioneer. I enjoy the moving forward, the getting things done, the new ground, the building new ideas, you know, and I remember my team sitting me down and saying, we don't know where you're going. You are so far ahead and you don't communicate, you don't follow the systems in place, so you don't even fill a diary in, so we don't know where you are. And I remember feeling such a sense of resistance and feeling like they were trying to control me and keeping me small. And I remember praying about it, because I'm someone who takes things to God, and that's why my team can trust God in me, is that I went to God and God showed me this picture of a war horse. He'll always show me pictures of horses. If you've listened to me any length of time now, you'll know that I will always come up with some sort of example of a horse. So here we are, another different example of a horse. This time it was a picture of a war horse, and this war horse was galloping around the field. He was shaking his mane and he was rearing up and he was pawing the ground and he was ready to go. And he could hear the sound of battle, and he was getting ready to move and run around, and there was power in him. And I felt God say this to me as I was watching this picture of this horse. He said to me, it doesn't matter how powerful he is. It doesn't matter how well trained he is. It doesn't matter how well he will do in the battle. If he refuses to wear the tack, to wear the reins and to wear the saddle, if he refuses to carry what can feel like a restriction, he will not leave this field. And it really hit home to me, and God explained to me that the saddle that I feel is being put on me, that is pulled tight around me, and I feel it restricts me, you know, the planning, the procedures, the way of doing things, the process. It must, you know, you must fill this box in. You must make sure that you put a purchase request in instead of just going ahead and spending money. There is a process in place. You know, all those things that I would fight against or resist because, you know, I'm the boss. If I want to do it that way, I get to do it that way, right? Wrong. That saddle is there, God said to me, so that you can carry something safely, so that it doesn't just slip off your back all the time. There is safety that is needed for you as a leader, and in order to create safety, you need to be able to wear the saddle. The bridle in your mouth, the reins that are on you to direct are there to direct and help with the pace and the speed of things. If you can't take direction as a leader, if you can't be able to be steered by process and by planning and by structure, then you become a leader that will never be able to leave the field. That you'll become dangerous on the battleground because you haven't learnt to take direction and to carry things safely. So for me, that sense of needing to make peace with the fact that there's process was a really important part of my leadership, and creating a safe space for my team to operate in. Isaiah 54 talks about stretching your tent curtains wide, you know, growing, taking more ground. That's what that talks about. But it says, you know, to drive the stakes into the ground and to stretch the tent poles. You know, for me, that structure of the tent, the driving the stakes into the ground, the ability to put the structure up of the tent is the very thing that allows it to stretch. And as leaders, if we're pioneering type leaders, we want to move forward, we want to build new things, we want to grow and stretch our tent curtain wide so we can cover more people and help more, you know, and the attitude behind it is good. But unless we are prepared to also dig those stakes deep into the ground, if we're not also willing to put the structure in place, then that whole thing we're trying to stretch will just collapse. So it's really important to embrace that. Now look out for shortcuts. If you're constantly trying to find shortcuts through the process, then that's something to just a little red flag. Things that you don't do because you're the leader, even though everyone else is supposed to do them. Little things like purchase orders or purchase requests. When you want to spend money from the budget and there's a process in order to spend the money, do you stick to the process, or do you just go and spend the money and tell somebody later without going through the process? Now, I used to do that a lot. It was one of the things that my team talked to me about. It's like, it's not that it's wrong to spend the money, it's that you're not communicating to us when you're going to spend the money, and it impacts us. So it was just something I needed to. So watch out for that. Watch out for, do you even know what the policies and the procedures are, or have other people put them in place, which is good because you've empowered people and they've put things there, but are you actually submitting yourself to the same processes? So just watch out for that. Number 4, because I'm running out of time. Healthy leadership has a healthy relationship with change. And by that I mean, again, I'm going to be talking about balance now. So a healthy relationship with change means that you have created a culture where there's flexibility without constantly changing direction. So there's a knowing, a leader who has a healthy relationship with change knows when something needs to stay agile and adapt and to improve and to change, but they know how to lead that change and keeping people on track and feeling safe amidst the change process. They don't constantly change direction, have new ideas, not constantly coming up with a new project, and now we're going to do this and now we're going to do that, and I woke up in the night and I had another bright idea, and now we're all going to head this direction instead. So you don't give your team whiplash by constantly coming up with a new way or a new idea or a new venture or a new project. You allow the other ideas that you've already had to embed, to take time to develop, to take people along the journey of understanding why the changes are happening. Now, with the lockdown recently, we really had to come to terms with being adaptable, and we've brought new changes in quickly. So as a team, we've been able to embrace those changes. We've had to communicate a lot to our team so that they don't feel lost by the changes and in the changes. So that's been good for us. And then on the other hand, by healthy relationship, what I mean is that you then don't go the other way where you're stuck in a rut, you're afraid of new, you're uncomfortable when other people come up with ideas for change, you like the way things are, the way the things are because they've always been like that, or because you put them in place and it was your idea and you are emotionally attached to the way that is happening and you don't want anyone to mess with it. So you become stuck in a rut, stuck and to the old way of doing things. And again, the longer you've been in leadership and the longer that things have been in place that you put there to start with, you become attached to them and then you don't want people to touch them. So have a healthy relationship with change so that you recognize when change needs to happen. You encourage those changes to happen slowly and thoughtfully. With a plan, and you're not constantly coming up with new ideas and new directions, whilst at the same time not being too attached to the old way of doing things. So look out for a constant idea factory, that you don't give time to sit with others before you've already got the team going on it. So that's one of the things I see a lot with pioneering entrepreneurial leaders, is they've got a new idea and before they've even talked to anyone about it, they've set a team in place to go and make it happen, and nobody even knew that was happening. So be aware of that. Also be aware of an instant no when anyone comes anywhere near to changing something that you are attached to. Without listening to them, without giving time to listen as to why they might want it to change, and to try and distance yourself from it emotionally so that you're not going, no, we're not touching that. No, we've always done it like that. No, I'm not interested in changing that. So really make sure that you don't have a resistance to empowering people with real ability to make changes that they need to make. So last one, I'll go as quick as I can. Healthy leadership culture looks and is led by people who stay in touch with what's really happening in their organization, whether it's their church, their charity, their business. Leaders who stay in touch with what's really happening and who haven't haven't just connected with their leadership, their executive circle. I've talked about the importance of having a circle, and that's really good and great. But if those are the only people you speak to, if you only ever speak to your direct reports, the people who are directly reporting to you, if you're only speaking to your exec team or your senior leadership team, and you don't connect outside of that into the other areas, the grassroots level of your organization, then you're going to get out of touch, and it's going to really damage the health of your organization. You can only really do that if you've already created an atmosphere of openness and honesty and relationship and authenticity, so that people don't feel intimidated when you connect with them. So as the CEO of my organization, I actually did 5 night shifts in the home before Christmas, and I hadn't done night shifts for 10 years. And I found it interesting because all the support workers who I would normally not have much to do with were initially really on edge that I was there. They found it intimidating. They felt like I was watching them. And I realized actually there's something wrong in the culture here if they feel like that when I'm around. So I've made a point of spending more time with the people I don't normally get to spend time with, making sure they know me as a person and not just me as the boss or the CEO. So it's just been really deliberate about connecting with the different areas of the organization and being visible and having an open door policy and people feeling like they can come and talk to you about anything. A few other things I did to make sure that was happening was that we had a few people leave our organization during lockdown because we invited redundancies to try and have a cost saving exercise. And about 5 people came forward to say that they were ready to leave, that God had already spoken to them about that they were in a time in their life and a season that they were ready to go. So I personally, and we would normally not do this, but I personally did their exit interviews. So I would talk to them about the reasons why they were leaving, what their impressions of Mercy were like. Was there anything we could learn about their time at Mercy that we could do better? And I did those personally because I wanted to keep an idea of what was the atmosphere like, what was the perception like from team members that I am not directly attached to. It was really helpful, really insightful. They were open and they were honest, and there's some changes that we've had to make since then. We've also introduced a 360 degree feedback from our team to our leadership team. So we asked our staff team, all of them, to fill in a questionnaire that would assess us as their senior leaders. Were we approachable? Did they feel confident that we knew what we were doing? We asked some really difficult questions and we invited that feedback. And it was our way of staying in touch with what people really think about us. So, quick, what to look out for. If you're not mixing with or having any contact with people outside of your executive or senior leadership team, change that. It's really simple. Connect with people, go in the car park, open the doors, stay late, have coffee with people you wouldn't normally see, just to take the temperature of what's going on. And if you're not engaging any of the grassroots activities of your organization, because it's been, you've been in place a long time, then make a decision to just, not for a long time, but just go and touch base. Go and do something, go and visit, go and spend some time in a different department. So watch out for that. If you haven't done that for a long time, it might be time to do that. Right, I have definitely run out of time. Talked for nearly half an hour, so sorry. I had a lot to say. And hopefully that's been helpful. I've got some questions that I've set for you to discuss in your teams, and then we're going to do some Q&As. So I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Så, tack så jättemycket för det, Arianna. Och jag hoppas att ni har fått med er någonting av de här 3 undervisningspassen. Nu ska vi på nytt in i våra processgrupper. Ni har en kvart på er och sen så kommer det en Q&A med Arianna som Paul håller i. Och glöm inte att skicka in era frågor redan nu till info@newwine.se, så kanske den kommer upp på Q&A där uppe sedan. Så varsågod och träffas i era processgrupper och så ses vi sen igen.
I had also, if you are in an unhealthy leadership culture, you do as an individual? Is there a point where they're actually so dangerous you should leave? So just give me a moment. I'll see if they are coming. Kör vi? Där? Aha. We are live. Sorry.
Oh,
welcome back, everyone, from your process time. I wasn't aware that we were live, but apparently we are. So, Arianna, good to have you here.
it's good to be here. I can't see anyone else's faces, so I'm assuming there's people out there.
It is. Hello. There are, yeah. And when we talked about your talks before, and you were like, you know, you're telling jokes and you don't know if people laughing, but they were laughing.
Oh, good. Nobody wants to be telling jokes that people aren't laughing at.
Yeah, love the horses. We need a lot of more horses. So, but great to have this time. We have 25 minutes or so now, and we will let people ask questions. So if you haven't sent your questions yet, please do. And so I will be getting them on my phone here, so and moderate this. First of all, Arianna, the questions, going back to your first session on setting boundaries.
Yes.
Many of us find that really hard. We want to please everyone, maybe, and so forth. But could you maybe give a few personal examples where you had to put up boundaries to just help us to see the process of that, maybe?
Yeah, it depends in what area of life. To be honest, life works much better if you have boundaries everywhere, you know. But in terms of, let's say, in the line of work that I do, I've put boundaries in place with some of the former residents, for instance, who are people who would want me to answer their questions or stay in contact with me personally once they've left. So I'll get people inboxing me on Facebook or giving me doing, you know, I'm not doing very well, I need some help, and they're kind of contacting me personal through Facebook, and I have a response where I'm like, I'm for you, I'm praying for you, this is the team that's going to help you, and I signpost them away from me personally and back to the team that's best equipped to help them. I don't give my personal phone number out. I've stopped doing that now. You know, at conferences, when I meet people, I used to speak at conferences, and a young woman would come up to me and pour her heart out, and I would pray with her, and then I'd give her my phone number and go, you know, just stay in touch. And I'm like, I can't do that, because then I would get a phone call or a text message at 1 a.m. from someone who's, you know, suicidal, and then I'm stuck with a situation that I need to, you know, respond to. So I'm careful about who I give my personal details to. I have a team that I signpost people to, and I make sure that I don't overpromise. I think that's a really important part of boundaries, is that you communicate clearly your availability. So if you say to someone that you're supporting, call me anytime, guess what they're going to do? They're going to call you anytime. If you bring someone who you're helping into your home and you make them dinner and you say, our home is always open to you, your home is then always open to them. So be really careful about what you communicate, how you communicate, and how available you make yourself to the people you're supporting.
Well, that's helpful. Yeah, because I mean, we're Christians, we're in Christian ministry, we're churches, we're supposed to love everyone and be for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. And then also in the area of accessibility, I guess, through social media and all our phones. Yeah. How do you deal with that? I mean, you mentioned a few things maybe, but
yeah, I have standard responses for people I don't know. We just send them to Mercy, or if it's, I don't accept people, like if people are asking me questions that aren't really relevant to anything that I can help them with, I'm always kind. I always respond. I don't ignore people, but I don't enter into conversation. I tend to signpost away from myself personally, because I'm not the answer to their problems. And people will very quickly want to connect to a person, especially a person who's got, you know, a semi-public profile, because they're easy to get to. And you kind of think they're the ones that I can only get help from them, because they're the only ones that will understand. So it's very quick as a leader, you can quickly become to people a place where they feel like you're the only one that understands. So it's important that we guard ourselves against that. And I would say always be kind. Don't be aggressive or rude or ignore people, but be firm. So you can be kind without being soft.
Right,
So
right.
It's what I call a velvet glove, iron fist in a velvet glove.
Understand. Maybe more on your internal process, because when we do this, we make people feel, or might feel that we make people disappointed.
Yes.
And then especially when we begin putting out boundaries, how do you internally process this?
I think it's really important as a leader to not get caught up in false responsibility. This goes back to some of the things I talked about knowing what it is, being really obedient to God. Jesus only did what he heard the Father do and only said what he heard the Father say.
Right.
You know, he was so connected to the Holy Spirit. He was aware of who he was sent to, and Jesus was not afraid of putting boundaries down. You know, I think of the rich young ruler who asked Jesus for help, and Jesus gave him what he felt he could give him, which was, these are the basics, do these few things. And then the rich young ruler said, well, I'm doing all that, I want more. I want more of you. And Jesus then said, okay, in order to get more of me, you need to have less of yourself. So
right.
Get rid of all the things you are relying on, and then your wealth will be in heaven, meaning you're going to have to go through me to get to it. And Jesus put a boundary in place. He said, okay, if you want to be closer, you actually need to get rid of some stuff to make this relationship work. And the rich young ruler walked away. Now, what's interesting to me is that Jesus did not go after him. He didn't say, look, I know it's a big ask. I know you've got a lot going on. That's too much. So why don't we do half of it first and then the rest in few little chunks in 6 weeks? Let's do a little program to help you, you know, get rid of the things you need to get rid of. Nothing wrong with the program, but Jesus had put a boundary down. He said, that's what you need to do. And until you do that, you're not going to get this. And Jesus didn't lower the bar. And Jesus did not feel, Jesus felt sad, I'm sure, as he let him walk away. And I think that's such a clear example for us as leaders, that we so often want to go and chase after the people, because somehow the more people we have in our church, the better leader we must be, right?
Right.
You know, if everyone's happy, that must mean we're doing a good job. So it becomes about us. It becomes about our self-esteem and worth and value. If we can help as many people as possible, then that reflects well on us. Jesus was so secure in his leadership, he didn't mind when people walked away.
Right.
He didn't go and chase after them. So he didn't have any false responsibility. He knew what that man's decision was that man's decision, and did not impact Jesus's sense of success or value as a leader. And that's something worth looking into. If it triggers something in you as a leader of, I feel like I'm letting them down, I feel like, you know, I feel bad about that, does that reflect badly on me? Then you probably need to go on a little bit of an exploration of your own sense of security and worth and value.
That's interesting. Very helpful. Thank you for that. And if people out there who are really at an emotional breaking point, right? So, I mean, everything you taught on, you know, how to take good care of yourself emotionally and bodily, but you know, if we haven't, right, and you're at a breaking point, what could you say to where to start? If we know, like an emergency plan, okay, where to go?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to start with the word help. Like the second you say help, it's the first opportunity for help to arrive. If you don't even admit that there's anything wrong, if you are not raising the alarm, then you can't blame anyone for not noticing that you're not doing well. And help won't arrive. I don't know if I told the story of did I tell the story of when I had my ski accident?
Yes, you did, yeah.
Yeah, so that is the first step. You have to say, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And I'm not okay is step one. And then finding safe people who you can say that to. And then it just really depends on people's individual circumstances as to what the steps after that are. But what 100% step one is, I'm not okay.
Yeah, really good. Well, thank you for that. And I'm also love the way you talked about the very practical things of life, and you know, training, and God saying eat vegetables. and maybe can you because I think this is a real issue, I think, amongst us as spiritual leaders, because you know, we should pray more, we should read the word more, you know, do that kind of stuff. But and how did you wake up to those things of you know, training and eating well and all of that?
I think part of it is, you know, in scripture it talks about wisdom and how wisdom brings health to the bones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not wisdom that brings health to the bones. It's applying wisdom to your life that brings health to the bones. Wisdom isn't a magic wand that, you know, you suddenly, as a leader, you've been leading for 20 years, so now you're wise and now your body will magically be healthy. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. Wisdom understands that when there's advice given from medical experts, you take that advice and you apply it to your life, and that's what brings health to your bones. So, for instance, don't smoke. Smoke kills you. Smoking kills. But I am still amazed at how many leaders, even in Christian circles, smoke. It's like, but it's not good for you. Stop it. You know, or knowing how much alcohol is healthy and not healthy. It really is about discipline and self-control, which is a fruit of the spirit. So understanding physical health and well-being and how closely connected our body is with our spirit and our soul, that if you neglect your body, if you indulge your body, and there's two things, you can either neglect it or you can indulge it, where whatever your body feels like, your body gets. That if your body is the one calling the shots and is in the lead, then you will end up being unhealthy and destructive. So viewing your body as a vessel and a responsibility for you as a person to take care of that vessel is something that helps me in my thinking when I'm, you know, I don't like exercise. So that's my current one. So I'm eating vegetables. I'm doing good with that. But now, you know, I'm walking. I'm setting myself, I have to do at least 2K a day.
Okay, yeah.
On average. So that means one day I won't do anything and then one day I'll do 8K. But I have to end my month with a 2K average.
Oh, that's good. That's good
for me.
I think it was 4 years ago. I was so stressed and I had bad sleep. I could, you know, relate to much of what you know, gave in your story. But one of the things I needed to do was to get exercise back in my life. When I was young, I did it a lot, but you know, ministry, work, and family, and small children, and all the rest of it. But I realized my body will break down if my soul will not cope. If I don't get in. So I applied, you know, training 2-3 times a week, and then Sabbath, a day a week, where I just cut out myself. I think that was really saving me. When you go to more of the leadership culture and organization, as I listen to you, and one of the things that I think is key for us to understand is to build a culture of vulnerability, where we can put down our guards and fences or whatever. But there is a big how to. How do we do that? And how can, because sometimes we build ourselves into in a place to break that culture and change it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yes. Culture is always built by the person who sets the culture.
Right.
If you are the leader, if you are the senior leader, then actually the culture will come from how you are and who you are.
Yeah.
What do you give permission to? What do you judge? What do you discipline in the team around you? So what is it? So if you want to build a culture of vulnerability, the number one thing is, are you vulnerable yourself? Does your team really know you? Do you allow them to know you? Do they know what your struggles are? Do they know, could they tell you when you have a bad day?
Right.
Or are you so masked? Or are you so, you know, have a performance going and a fake persona that your team wouldn't really even know when you're having a bad day or a good day?
Mm.
And if you are having a bad day, are your team able to tell you that?
Mm.
That's
Good
really
questions.
So it's not just do they notice, B, when they notice, have you created a culture that's safe enough for them to go, hey, Paul, are you okay today? You don't seem yourself.
Yeah.
And then if your answer is, I'm fine, it's none of your business, you know, then that shuts down the culture. That doesn't mean you have to pour your heart out to every person who asks you, but a simple, you know what, I didn't sleep too good last night. I've got a few things going on. I really appreciate your prayers today, actually. So thanks for asking. That is a completely different response. Doesn't mean everybody gets to know everything that's going on for you. But when you're struggling, when you're having a bad day, when there's some things on your mind, you know, that ability to just be real and go, you know what, me and God are working some things out right now. So yeah, I'm sorry if I seem a bit short or not myself. It's just, give me a week or so, I'll be fine. I'm going to take a day off on Saturday. I'll sort my head out. You know, just be normal.
Yeah. Be human.
Be human.
Relax. We need some more
and
human leaders.
Another really important part of that culture building is not to shame people or judge people or talk about people behind their backs, which whenever we talk about somebody, the person you're speaking to is thinking to themselves, if you're speaking about that person to me, and speaking about them like that, judging them, you know, then that means when I'm not in this room, what are you saying to them about me? So, so that, and if as leaders, we know we do need to speak about people. You know, there's discipline things, or there's performance related stuff, or there's mistakes that have been made, or there's concerns we might have, and it's legitimate. It's okay to have those conversations, but it's the spirit within which those conversations are had. So I'm going to talk about that person right now, but I'm going to do it in a way that's honoring, that's showing concern, that I am frustrated with them because they're letting me down in what they're supposed to be doing. But how can we help? What training does that person need? How can we help them not make those same mistakes again? Because in the end, if they're failing, then so are we.
Yeah. Exactly. And the bit there where you're not shaming people, but creating that safe environment where people can share their hearts truly. And of course, it starts with us as leaders, but also that environment, I think, is so key for a healthy leadership environment, because we all have, I mean, I think what's happening many times is that the small things that we carry, we don't share, they grow, and then eventually things come after us.
And they always do. And I do think what we're seeing now on a global scale, on the world platform, with many leaders falling morally, financially, what I see is an old guard, an old leadership mentality of, you know, alpha male usually. So everybody worships them. You can't question them. You don't hold them accountable. They're not. They are so good at what they do. Nobody's challenging them about who they are. And I see, and it's coming down. That the generation coming up now are not buying into that. They're not believing it anymore. They are done with performance, you know, big scale, I've got it all together kind of leaders. They want to see humans. I do think there is a shift happening generationally now in leadership styles.
And that's why I'm so happy we're having this conversation in this conference, that we bring up these things, because we see leaders fall. We see all of this happening, and it's affecting us, and then there must be another way. There must be another way to be a leader, to be church together, where we don't have to have these superheroes who has it all together all the time, and, you know, get everyone happy and all of that way. We are humans. So, and I think you did it so with such an honesty. Thank you for sharing your embarrassing what you think. That helps us all. So thank you so much for that. Stepping out, it means a lot.
It's therapeutic.
Sorry?
It's therapeutic for me.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a question on when you talked about going into the organization and being available or do things at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
And the question is, maybe, I don't know if you answered it in the talk, but how do you make sure it doesn't seem like you're there to control?
Yeah.
And, look at people, how they perform, but they actually feel different and an approach that you're available as a person, not as a leader only.
I think what's really important is that you ask questions.
Yeah.
But ask questions of the people around you, like how are you finding this? What do you like? Show a genuine interest in the person's role. Like, show me how to do this. So put yourself in the position of the learner. Right. Of, so I did that when I was back in the home doing night shifts. Well, I haven't done night shifts for 13 years. I didn't know what I was doing. So I couldn't come in there as a CEO and start, bossing people around and everyone tiptoes around you a little bit, going, oh, she's in tonight. What's gonna but for me the first thing I did on that shift was go, right, guys, just so you know, I haven't done a night shift for 10 years. So somebody's going to have to show me what to do. I will make mistakes. I don't know where anything is. Please tell me. So I didn't go in as the big boss. I went in as, I'm a learner. I haven't done this for a long time. You need to show me what to do. But in doing that, the next day, I had a whole list of feedback to the head of the program to be able to go, okay, these are the things I've noticed. Like, and these are some of the things that we need to change, because I don't know when they happened there, but I don't remember ever saying that that's how we do things. So explain to me why that's there. So it's just all about how you are. I don't mind going in and being a support worker and putting myself in a position of learner.
Yeah, but that says a lot, I think. Very good, very good. Another question: if you are, because now we've been evaluating our leadership cultures. If you find yourself in a very unhealthy leadership culture, and you in this process open your eyes and say, hey, this is not sound, what to do, firstly, and secondly, will there be a point where it's actually so dangerous that you should just get out of there? Can you say something about that?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, decisions like that should never be made on how you feel. I think where God plants you, especially if we're talking within a church context, this is God's church. And God plants us in churches. And there is going to come a season where if it's an abusive situation, if it's destructive, if it's destroying you, then I do believe God will give you a way out. I don't think it's healthy for people to stay in that situation if there's no chance of change. For me, I've been in the same church for 38 years now, and I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I've in the church when it's been through a season where it wasn't healthy leadership, where it was controlling, and we desperately wanted to leave, my husband and myself, and God said to us, no, stay. And actually our job was to become part of the change, and it took years. And now we are part of, my husband's the chair of the board, we are part of the leadership team. We're not paid, we're not on staff, but I know that we have a function that helps make our church a better place to be for everybody. But we could have left, and that would have been an easy option. But God was very clear about us needing to stay, and God helped us in that time to protect our hearts. We had little strategies that we had to keep ourselves doing okay. We had a good close group of friends who we saw regularly, who weren't all in our church, that we fellowshipped with and prayed with and had time with. So there's ways to do it, but I do think the important thing is take your leadership from the Holy Spirit, because sometimes he'll say stay and sometimes he'll say go. he'll say go. So I can't say, you know, always leave, because that's it's too individual and too important.
Of course. But thank you. It's just good to hear you on that. I would like us. We have done the Q&A bit now, but I would like us to just shift a little focus back to Keys to Freedom, if that's okay. Yes, because you have written this guidebook, discipleship material, Keys to Freedom.
Yeah.
And we got to know this material as we in City Church 2.5 years ago, while Alfred met you in New Wine, England. And well, it's gone fast, and we got it.
Is it only 2.5 years ago?
Yes.
Wow.
So it got printed in Swedish. I think it was released in August or September, and it's already sold 1,500 copies.
Wow.
So it seems like it's meeting a need out there. For people who are really longing for getting freedom and emotionally being more emotionally healthy. So I just want to say we are so thankful for that, Arianna, to standing with us in that. But there's a training day coming up.
There is,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
24th of April.
Yeah. And who is leading that training day?
That's Rob Harvey. So he's our lead trainer. He works at Mercy UK, and that's his specialism, is delivering the training for facilitators. So anyone who wants to facilitate a Keys to Freedom group in their church, in their community, they'll really benefit from the training in terms of being able to host those groups really well. Know what to do with the people in the group. So I would definitely advise. And the thing about Keys to Freedom that I love is that it's not just for people who want freedom from really big things, you know, healing from life controlling issues. This is really a discipleship model for anyone and everyone, for leaders as well. We have many leaders actually who go through Keys to Freedom themselves first, and everything I spoke about today in the first session or second one, whichever one, when I was talking about us being emotionally well and healthy and spiritually strong, you know, Keys to Freedom is essential in really helping people on that journey, and just using it as a bit of a health check, like a facilitated conversation with the Holy Spirit.
So it's a 8-week process.
8-week workbook. All you need is a pen, a Bible, that book, and the Holy Spirit. 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. You just use it as we call it self-led. So you lead yourself through it. You spend your time, you write the scriptures out, you ask the Holy Spirit questions, and you know what? He answers. And when the Holy Spirit answers, that is so much more powerful than when any person does it. But this book really allows the Holy Spirit some space to speak into your heart and into your mind. So it's definitely a worthwhile thing for anybody to do, men, women, leaders, not leaders. And it's especially good to keep going back to if you need to, or if you're in a certain crisis right now, if you're finding life really difficult, if you just need to create some space for yourself, then I would definitely recommend it as a bit of a structured process.
Right. Indeed. I'm just going to check if Judith is ready, because I'm going to bounce back to her very soon. Judith, because we're glad that we are now able also to organize ourselves a little bit in Sweden concerning this. We are together with Mercy and Mercy Beyond, which is the way you relate to different nations. And so, and Judith, who's been leading the service now, is going to be a coordinator in Sweden for Keys to Freedom.
Yes.
So I will very soon just give it back to her, and she will tell a little bit of her experience with Keys to Freedom. But thank you so much, Arianna, for being with us. It's been a great afternoon.
Hopefully next time I'll be in person.
Please do. Definitely. Okay, so thank you for now, and I let Judith take it onwards. Okay. God bless you, Arianna, and everyone else. Bye bye.
Tack så mycket, Paul och Arianna, för den Q&A. Det var väldigt, väldigt bra. Och som sagt, jag ska koordinera New Wine här i Sverige och jag ser jättemycket fram emot det. Och nej, förlåt, nu sa jag New Wine. Jag menade Nycklar till frihet här i Sverige. Och jag ser fram emot det jättemycket och ser verkligen det som en förmån. Och vi, som de pratade om lite här uppe, vi fick Nycklar till frihet hit för, nu är det väl 2 år sedan. Och vi var ett gäng som startade en grupp som bara ville bli mer hela på insidan. Och vi hittade ett materialet och tyckte att det var så himla bra och testade det. Och vi såg verkligen hur flera av oss blev förvandlade på insidan och förstod verkligen att Jesus älskade oss och ville ha med oss att göra, helt enkelt. Och personligen så märkte jag att jag hade länge levt utan att faktiskt veta om att Jesus älskade mig. Men i den här kursen, under den här kursen, och när jag bjöd in Gud och Jesus mer och mer in i mitt liv och in i min själ och innanför mina murar, så märkte jag verkligen att jag inte visste att Jesus älskade mig. Och plötsligt så bara från ingenstans, när vi satt och pratade om jag vet inte ens vad, så var det som att någonting bara slog mig och trillade ner i mitt hjärta, och jag förstod för första gången i mitt liv att Jesus faktiskt älskar mig. Och det har verkligen förvandlat mitt liv och satt en helt ny grund i mitt ledarskap och i vem jag är, och att jag är älskad och jag är kallad och jag är utvald. Och jag tror att det här materialet, eller jag vet att det här materialet redan har fått sprängkraft runt om i Sverige. Så om du är intresserad av det här och vill träna ledare i att leda andra in i det här materialet, så är den här träningsdagen perfekt för dig. Vi har redan haft en träningsdag i höstas och detta är en liknande träningsdag. Så det är för nya ledare som vi går det här materialet. Och har du några frågor vidare så kan du höra av dig till New Wine. Eller så kan du höra av dig till oss i Citykyrkan, så hör vi av oss till dig. Tack så mycket. Nu ska jag lämna över till David igen, som ska ge en kort resumé. Tack så mycket.
Tack Judith. Fantastiskt. Jag kan bara stämma in om Nycklar till frihet. Jag har också använt materialet, tycker det var helt fantastiskt. Var helt överväldigad av det. Så att jag kan verkligen rekommendera det. Jag tänkte bara för er som vill, så försöker göra en liten sammanfattning av Q&A som Paul hade med Arianna på svenska. Så att om det är någon som känner att ni inte riktigt hänger med i engelska, annars kan ni gå och käka nu, för nu är det tid att äta. Men lite kort bara. Först pratar de lite grann om att sätta gränser, och Arianna berättar lite exempel på. De har ju hjälpt jättemycket människor, många unga tjejer som har hjälpt, som kanske till och med kommit hem i deras hem och sådär. Men hur hon tydlig med att sätta gränser, sådana som har bott hos dem tidigare, att det kommer inte vara liksom en vidare kontakt, utan är det någon som skickar ett meddelande på Facebook eller så här, så att hela tiden liksom skicka vidare dem till teamet på Mercy, så att det inte blir en personlig kontakt, och ganska noga med det, och också att inte lova för mycket. Säger man att mitt hem är öppet alltid för dig, då innebär det ett löfte. Så tänk på vad du lovar för någonting, och var tydlig med att sätta gränser också, så att du har liksom ditt space för din familj också, så att du inte lovar för mycket. En sak som hon sa, var snäll men inte för mjuk, vilket jag tycker var ganska bra. Paul lyfte också en fråga lite grann om när man kommer då till en breaking point som ledare, när man känner att nu orkar jag inte längre, eller nu går det inte längre, jag håller inte ihop längre. Vad ska jag göra för någonting? Och det första som Arianna var inne på, just att säg hjälp, precis som i skidolyckan som hon nämnde tidigare. Att verkligen säga att jag behöver hjälp, att komma till en punkt där man tar emot hjälp, och hur viktigt det är att faktiskt kunna komma till en punkt och säga att jag klarar inte av det här, jag behöver hjälp. Superviktigt. Vi var också inne och pratade lite grann om att just fysisk hälsa, hur använd vishet, det är inte bara att vara vis, utan faktiskt applicera det på ens liv, och hur viktigt fysisk hälsa och välmående är för ditt andliga liv också. Se din kropp som ett kärl, ett vässel, och vårda din kropp, för att annars kan vi inte göra det som Gud har kallat oss till. Så vårda det kärl som vi har fått, din kroppen som du har fått. De också lite grann och pratar lite grann om kultur av sårbarhet. Kom ihåg att den byggs av, är det du som är ledare så är du också den som är förebild. Du är den som modellerar en kultur av sårbarhet. Så var föredöme, var sårbar, gör dig sårbar. Vet teamet om, kan de läsa av dig? Kan de ställa frågan, är du okej? Våga vara transparent, tillåt teamet att fråga hur du mågar och hur du mår. Så var transparent och var mänsklig. Du skapar en kultur av sårbarhet och hur viktigt det är att du går före som ledare. De var också inne lite snabbt på just det här att släpp det där med att vara big boss, att du ska kunna allting. Var ödmjuk när du kommer in i ett sammanhang. Som ledare så är det ingen som förväntar sig att du ska kunna allt, utan också våga vara ödmjuk. Lär dig av andra, lyft fram andra som kompletterar dig själv. Det är inte big boss som kan allt, utan vi jobbar tillsammans som ett team. Och den sista frågan så var det igen, om du nu är i ett sammanhang som är väldigt ohälsosamt, vad ska du göra för någonting? Och det var intressant, Arianna sa just, var inte för snabb. Tänk på att det är Gud som bygger din församling. Älskar exemplet att hon har varit 38 år i samma församling, trots att hon flera gånger och hennes man har velat lämna. Men kom ihåg att det är Gud som bygger församlingar. Och ibland så kanske det är så att Gud vill att du ska vara en del av lösningen. Så att var inte för snabb i att bara dra. Sen är det klart, är det någonting som är väldigt destruktivt så kanske det är en självbevarelsedrift. Men tänk på att också det är Gud som bygger sin församling och lyssna in honom, vad han vill göra och vad din roll i kanske var en del av lösningen. Det var lite grann en snabb sammanfattning på svenska av eftermiddagssession. Jag tycker det här har varit fantastiskt bra med Arianna. Otroligt viktig. Jag uppmuntrar att gå tillbaka och titta på undervisningen igen. Nu har vi lite break. 18:45 så kommer vi köra igång med lite försnack inför kvällens gudstjänst med Daniel Thorvaldsson och Karo Hall. Se om det är någonting i chatten som vi behöver följa upp. Och lite tips där om man kan köpa böcker, Nycklar till frihet på Sjöbergs förlag och en träningsdag den 24 april. Annars så tror jag att vi har täckt allting nu, så vi tar en paus och så ses vi 18:45 igen. Välkommen tillbaka. Hej!